So, this is the last part of the habits, routines, habit stacking little section. And honestly, this one is so important because this is the big mindset part. And we all like to think that if we aren't hard on ourselves, then we won't continue to grow. We won't continue to reach our goals. We won't continue to get results. But actually, the opposite is true. And it's funny because when you think about how you interact with other people, when you encourage other people, when you build them up, they're more motivated. But if you tell them that they're doing something wrong, you tell them that they're stupid, you tell them that they're a failure, do you think that they're going to try to continue towards the thing that they want to continue towards? But for some reason, we think that we're this magic animal that we can be hard on ourselves and that will motivate us, when we know that that's not how things work. So we need to be really intentional about the way that we motivate ourselves, because I think that when we can start actually becoming our own cheerleader, we start doing more than we believe instead of constantly thinking that we're not doing enough. And so there is a lovely little neurotransmitter in our brain called dopamine. And dopamine is a feel-good neurotransmitter. It is something that when we have a hit of dopamine, we feel good. We get this hit of dopamine when someone gives us a hug, when someone tells us we did something amazing. We get this also when we eat like delicious food, which is why we like eating delicious food. But something that you don't know is that you can actually give yourself a hit of dopamine. And so there is a researcher called BJ Fogg who wrote an amazing book called Tiny Habits, which I totally recommend reading it. And BJ Fogg talks about this concept of shine. And shine is this feeling when you are proud of yourself or when you do something well. It's this feeling that you have in your body of, wow, I did good. And you can actually give yourself that. And I like to think of it as like the happy dance. And so think about when you are proud of yourself or when you've achieved something, the thought process that goes through your head, or maybe the movements that you do. Like some people are like, yes, or like, yeah, like pat themselves on the back. And you might do it kind of as a joke, but it is actually part of how you congratulate yourself for doing something well. And when we intentionally start practicing this, we give ourselves a hit of dopamine. That hit of dopamine is motivating. So everybody that's like, I keep losing motivation, like it's all within your power. But going back to like what we talked about last time is if your expectations are too high, if you have an unhelpful environment, if tasks are too complicated, you have an unclear plan, it's really hard to want to give yourself that concept of shine because you constantly feel like you're failing. So I want to go back to the plant analogy, because when you treat a plant with love and care and you give it water and it's in a beautiful place, it grows, right? When you put it in the dark, when you punish it, you don't give it any water, it's not going to grow. And so I want to give you a really amazing example of how to use this shine. So a client of mine, she wanted to start reading in the evening instead of looking at her phone. And so we said, okay, what do you do every night? She said, well, every night I take my magnesium supplement. Amazing. After you take your magnesium supplement, you will read one page of your book. And she was like, one page? I was like, yep, one page. She's like, well, that doesn't seem like anything. I was like, I get it, but how confident are you that you can read one page of your book? And she was like, oh, 100%. There's no way I can't do that. Fast forward a few weeks and she, we talked about the concept of shine and the happy dance. And she's like, I'm so excited every night to go read my book. And sometimes I read more and it just feels great. And that has to do with the conjunction of making something super easy and practicing this concept of the happy dance, concept of shine. So again, these habits, like there's a volume dial, like with this client. Some days she might read 20 pages, some days she might read 3, some days she might only read 1. But we know that she can turn down or up the volume depending on what her capacity is like that day, because every day our capacity is a little bit different. So sometimes you'll be able to turn up the volume and go all in. Sometimes you'll have to scale back to the bare minimum. But knowing that you can always go back to these anchors is very, very helpful.